60. If I want to hear the other one.
Okay. Good morning, afternoon. I think it's still morning. I'm losing track. Okay, so this session now we're going to do it's Barbara Kisses. We're going to talk about Jesus Mary Chain. Zoe, who wrote this really great book that's come out about Mary Chain, and Douglas, who used to be in Jesus Mary Chain. So I think we'll start with the book. So why did you decide to write a book about Jesus Mary Chain?
I think with most of the projects I tend to sort of want to get involved with, it's always a sense of kind of injustice that gets me to like, why hasn't someone done a proper book on the Jesus and Mary Chain before? And that was my feeling. So I kind of looked into it and I thought, well, it was like a very slim volume that I think came out in 1988, which is like cut and paste from the NME sort of gossip columns, and that was it. That was all that existed, and I couldn't quite believe it. So that was really kind of the first motivation, and as a band, they were just totally part of my soundtrack growing up. As it's similar for a lot of people I know, and a lot of shared musical reference points. From the point of view of the sort of love of punk and punk attitude and Iggy Pop and Velvet Underground, and so there were lots of different kind of things magnetising me to them over the years. So I just thought, well, let's give it a try and see if I can speak to Jim and see what he thinks.
I mean, why? Do you find why we handed a book on them?
I'm always interested as to I don't know if there's really a definitive answer as to why someone hasn't done that. I think it depends so much, because I felt like that when I did the book about the Slits. I thought, why hasn't anybody done a book about the Slits? It seemed insane to me. And maybe there's a connection personality-wise or attitude-wise, maybe they're slightly intimidating bands. I think the Slits were certainly intimidating. Maybe people just sort of think, oh, they probably wouldn't want to get involved. And maybe people felt like that about the Mary Chain. They're quite sort of an intimidating. I mean, I'm terrified of Douglas personally, still, absolutely, very frightening person. So it could be that.
Was it kind of sense that almost semi-forgotten? I mean, obviously they go out and play and get good crowds at the gigs, but kind of the whole indie scene kind of moved off, even though it's very influenced by Mary Chain. It kind of moved off in a very different direction.
Yes, absolutely. And then you have sort of this kind of incredibly important seminal band that, and it's like what we were talking about yesterday with Dr. Feelgood, that somehow then kind of not falls between the cracks, but then it's sort of like in people's minds that stays there. Now kind of indie goes somewhere else and does something else and turns into Britpop and all of that, and maybe there's a sense of being left behind.
So what was it like when you got in touch with the band? I mean, some of the bands are a bit more prickly than other bands, aren't they?
Well, quite used to that. As I say, I wrote a book about Slits, and I'm still here to tell the tale. The scratches and the bruises have all gone now. But yeah, I mean, it was actually, in a way, it was kind of not. I was expecting it to be quite a lot harder than it was. Maybe it's about timing. I think with these kind of projects, sometimes it just has to be the right time and people are ready to talk. It was initially, I'm friends with John Moore, who used to be in the Jesus and Mary Chain, and so I said, look, I know you're really close friends with Jim still, could you broach the subject, just because I knew that obviously Jim's very private and not particularly accessible to his own as I'm led to believe. So, and John did get in touch with Jim and said, well, yeah, okay, he's happy for you to get in touch and sort of have a chat. So it kind of started from there. And then I met Jim and Douglas at the Art Rocker Awards a couple of years ago, and that was the first time I kind of actually met you face to face and kind of broached it slightly there. It wasn't quite the right time to it was more kind of like, where's the bar kind of thing. So, but I thought, well, I'd just sort of mention it. And so it kind of went on from there, but it was quite a slow process, but yeah.
So how different was Jim Williams' idea of the band?
Well, actually, this is the one regret, is that unfortunately William chose not to be involved with the book. Jim really did try to sort of keep persevering and getting involved, so it's very much he's very much represented in there, of course. And I've kind of used as many kind of secondary sources and all the rest of it to kind of keep his voice in there, because it's so important, obviously. But
so Douglas, would you say that's kind of like the story of the band in a way?
Yeah, I guess there's always spoke to pretty much everyone. I mean, I guess William's fallback position is he won't speak to anyone. I agree, it's a shame because his take on it is really important. But I think Jim was very heavily involved, so. It seems to be, I guess it's the only book so far that's ever come close to it. I haven't actually read it, so I'm presuming it has.
Well, I guess the idea of reading a book about yourself was quite weird.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, and I guess you do more than one interview. I think I've spoken to you a couple of times, and yeah, it's a strange thing to look back in that way, So, but not unpleasant. It's not generally.
Because your position in the band's quite interesting in that you were sort of in between your two brothers, because it's pretty much well documented, the two brothers. Even though the brothers always have that love for each other, they're also quite antagonistic.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the middle of just countless fights, but they were so good at winding each other up. It was kind of like watching a performance. I actually stand back and think, that is fucking genius. How can you wind someone up so perfectly?
So would your role be to try and patch it up again, or would your role to like
enjoy the show?
Because on the Creation film, there's that fantastic bit when we talk about when you went round to the house for the time.
Yeah, I was.
What's that name they had for you? Because you look so young.
Todd, I was shot for toddler because I was 14 years old, but I looked like fucking 8.
Yeah.
Because William was 7 years older than me, so he was like 21 or something at the time. And I think the three of us used to walk around East Kilbride sometimes and people would shout child molest. I guess, but the reason that happened, because they were the only other two people in the town that we grew up in, a new town, a fucking...
East Kilbride.
Yeah, East Kilbride, the only two other people that literally had the same kind of omnivorous taste in music as I had. There was people that were into punk or the kind of mod thing, but there was no one that really loved it all. And really, the reason I met them is I used to write all the names of my favourite bands on my school books. And some kid said, I got a karate with a guy that loves all those bands. And I just went up and knocked on his door. If I'd been older, I wouldn't have done it, because I was only like 14. And the kind of thing you did when you were a kid.
It was the dad that opened the door, wasn't it?
I think with his mum, and she was like, fucking had to look down and that thing. So.
What do you say when you go around to some older kid's house?
Just say I heard you like the Velvet Underground. And, so yeah.
But what do they say? They just look to you like...
They think
they must have thought the weirdest little...
Yeah, it's fucking mental, but yeah. But I think, as Jim said, it's like anyone, it was kind of great to meet someone else that thought the same way, but yeah. So in the same way we met Bobby later on, who didn't come from East Kilbride, but we met him through in Glasgow, so and he was the same, and it was just a great, really felt like freaks in a kind of wilderness, really, to be honest.
And what was Bobby's kind of status in the band? If you were in between two brothers, was he like a satellite kind of floating around?
Yeah, I mean, he was just, he brought a kind of energy that was just incredible. We had a drummer before, Bobby Gillespie played drums for us, and the gigs that we'd done were great, but when he joined, it just really, it just became just to another level, really. It was like an amazing moment when he offered to play drums.
But did he feel like he was always had his own thing going on, and he was
obviously, he was all in Primal Scream when he played drums for us. So yeah, in a way, it was an inevitability that he would be a front man, not just a drummer. But so when he left.
So when you wrote the book, did you speak to a lot of people from Glasgow?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously spoke to Bobby, of course, and just sort of look at the key sort of core people, and sort of like kind of went a little bit wider around that sort of circle. Obviously, Alan McGee is in the book as well, and sort of various kind of promoters and managers and people who were kind of engineers along the way. So, kind of trying to build up as full a picture as I possibly could without kind of losing the thread. The most important bit at the end of the day. The kind of raison d'etre is to have the Jesus and Mary chain tell their story, and obviously, as I say, we don't have William, but that was always the kind of the aim. So I didn't want to kind of go too sprawling. I wanted to keep it very kind of as pure as possible, but also keep it balanced.
Did you get a good sense of what Glasgow was like in that period? Because it's quite an interesting city. You used to see that time.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But I think also what was interesting to me as well was the kind of sense of disconnection between the Jesus and Mary chain and Glasgow. Because I think doing initial research, you kind of read NME when they were sort of the buzz band, and it's all kind of like Glasgow band Jesus and Mary chain, because they weren't from Glasgow, and they, from what I've been told, they weren't actually they didn't feel accepted all part of that scene.
We were
Douglas.
despised, I mean, because what we were doing at that point was so different. So the reception we got when we tried to play in Glasgow was fuck off, basically. And that's how we actually met Bobby, because we tried to get a gig at a club and we gave him a demo tape. And the guy hated it, but and he gave it to Bobby not because of our music, because we couldn't afford a new tape, so it was a compilation on the other side.
Yeah, it was just a sit down.
And he gave it him with that, and of course he flipped over and he was like, fucking wow, you know. So yeah, that was kind of, we were met completely with, we did get in a kind of battle of the bands thing. It's fucking, literally, to me it seems a bit like a dream, because all I can remember is 1 minute we were on stage with all the kind of heat of the lights, and then literally it seemed like 30 seconds later we were out in the fucking street. The guy threw us, not just off stage, but out into the fucking street, and we're standing in the rain. I was thinking, what happened? It was, that's how, that honestly was the kind of reaction, and like, I just, hatred, you know.
Which kind of weird, because from the outside, Glasgow always seemed to have this kind of, not very big scene, but part of the scene was always this felt underground, siege, garage rock, 60s, kind of hipster punk kind of scene.
To some degree, but not, I think we added in a kind of extra element of insanity to it.
Yeah. What about people like the Pastels? Were they like...
Yeah, and I think Stephen, a little bit later on actually, when we just met Alan, Stephen Pastel was the kind of first champion. So yeah, there was people that... But we were so disconnected living in this kind of new town, you know, 50 miles outside, that we didn't know any of these people, you know, there's no way. So we came to London really early on.
I guess in the mid-80s, for people like us, if we heard of 5 people into some kind of scene in the city, it seemed like a big scene.
Yeah, no,
it's not like now everything fills stadiums. So to me, Glasgow always seemed to have this huge scene of bands that really into this kind of stuff, because it was the Pastels and Alan McGee.
It kind of came and went, but I think at that point in 1984 or 3, it wasn't as big, you know, it was definitely, the Oranges had left and gone to London, and the Pastels were just really sort of establishing themselves. So it was a little, when we first started to try and get gigs, there wasn't so much of a scene.
So when the idea to get the band together in the first place, were the brothers actually playing music when you first met them? Yeah,
when I was really tiny around this gym, really, and the tape that we handed into the tape that Bobby got, it was only going to be the 2 of us initially going into a band, because I guess Jim and William shared a room, and the idea of them being in a band together just fucking didn't seem on, really, because they fought.
So it just going to be you and Jim at first?
Just initially, and then I think after we tried to get that gig and done a couple of rehearsals on our own, we were thinking, how the fuck can we do this? So it was kind of a natural thing for William to come along with his own songs, because we were just doing Jim's songs at that point.
So could you play at this point?
Not really, no.
So you just plonking around?
Still can. I could, you know, I guess the thing with the Mary Chain songs, they were really easy. That was just why I could do it with 2 strings. That was more, I could have done it on 1 string actually.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of great music, though.
Yes, it was utterly simple, you know. And I think we believed in our little new town that punk rock had changed the world, and it really did matter. We really believed that. I mean, I still do. I guess in the months later and years later, we realised that punk rock had changed fuck all, really. You know? Because, you know, even within the creation scene, people would, some of the bands, not all of them, would be disgusted at our level of professionalism, you know. And we were like, fuck, what, you know. I was amazed. You know. I really believed, I mean, I was a kid, but I believed that punk rock had wiped all that away, but it really hadn't even scratched the surface.
Would you say that in a weird way, part of that disillusionment of maybe the failure of punk rock is part of what?
Yeah, it's what.
Yeah,
it does, and I guess we had this almost sort of Stalinist attitude. It's like, no, what fuck, you know, this revolution happened in 1977. Like, where the fuck are the followers, you know? So yeah, it made us kind of angry and made us even more determined to prove a point. Absolutely.
But there's also, conversely, a love of the classics as well. But like I said, Alan McGee yesterday, that whatever it's this kind of punk rock, amazing punk rock, scouring all nihilism, there's also this deep love of the classics of the 60s.
But I think that was at the time when we were born, so we were, all of our first exposure to music was T-Rex and Bowie, who were like massive pop stars, so we kind of wanted to be that, but we also wanted to be nihilistic. It was an incredible incendiary mixture. And I guess even when we came into the indie world, there was a real attitude amongst lots of the bands that, oh, you don't do Top of the Pops, you don't do, and we were like, fucking no, that's why you join a band, isn't it? But also what we loved about things like Top of the Pops was the contrast. So when you were a kid and you saw all the kind of shitty pop, and then you saw like a punk band on it, that contrast was fucking so exciting. Yeah. I think that's something that's lost in music now. And we were very much determined to be part of that contrast.
Yeah, and you pulled it off. So, was this kind of contradiction, was this something a lot of people in the book would allude to?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the things that always fascinated me about the band the most, really, is that sort of, you know, in almost every way, there's a sort of contradiction. You know, look at any element of what makes up the Jesus and Mary Chain, you've got a contradiction. I mean, if you just look at the kind of, you know, the first thing you think of, obviously you've got the sound, you've got the huge feedback and the white noise, but you've also got, you know, beautiful pop songs, quite hypnotic, kind of almost womb-like quality, like if you listen to Psycho Candy, you know, so you've got a contradiction there in itself, that's just one, you know, so in sort of, you know, spanning a career, it's just one big kind of really exciting conflict, I suppose. And the feeling, you know, talking to the guys, you know, watching the videos and sort of doing my research is kind of, you know, this kind of grit in the oyster, I suppose that's kind of really important, that kind of friction, whether in attitude or in the music or just the whole kind of thing. It seems to sort of conjure something really special and magical. It's actually quite courageous as well. That's certainly the feeling I got.
So speaking of contradictory and fascinating characters, Alan McGee appears. So the famous cassette, Bobby sent it to Alan.
He did send it to Alan and the thing.
I actually heard this cassette, so
Alan
played it to me. It was floating around.
Yeah, Photo Studios. Yeah, it was really great, those demos. I guess so Alan got them and he wrote us a letter. I remember the letter he wrote as McGee's first letter to us was in green ink, and I think we just read somewhere that meant he was a psychotic. So yeah, it's true, really fucking hell. And he pretty much offered us gigs straight away, you know, in the living room. And in my mind, this was like some swinging 60s nightclub, but it was a room full of love. So, and also I think what he said, why don't you do a song for a compilation? And so his immediate reaction was to offer what, I mean, we'd sent our tapes out to lots of people, met with utter rejection, so his initial kind of, this was before we even met him, was great for us. It was really encouraging.
You got the classic burst of
yeah, you know, and then when we eventually went down and played, he came running up to us straight after we'd finished, and he's like, I want to do an album with you. I mean, it really was like the guy was beaming, you know, and we were like totally shocked. So, yeah, I don't think anyone, when we'd sent our tape out to people like Rough Trade, you know, the later we were kind of involved with, and I think, the kind of fate of us meeting, because he was the only person at any label in the country that would have possibly got what we were doing, and it is incredible that we met them by such a fortuitous kind of accidental route. So yeah, it's fate.
A perfect moment to think.
I know, yeah, I mean,
just
it really was, you know, incredible. And no one, I mean, I always say it, no one else would have got it in the way that he did, you know. Not only got it, but I think he saw even beyond us, you know, because it was hard for us in the middle of it all to see it. So. And he, you know, he promised us lots of things. You know, we're going to make you massive. We're going to, you know, get on top of the pops, and he did that. Well, we would always tell people, you know, at that stage when it was just completely not our fucking insanity and noise. Like we were going to do Top of the Pops one day, they would literally piss himself laughing. Within a year we'd done it.
But he genuinely actually, he wasn't
genuinely
saying
it
this.
when we would say things like that, he'd be like, fucking amazing, yes. You know.
So
when lots of people would literally laugh at us, and he would go, fucking, I love it.
So he put you in the studio to record, and that was in Southern Studios, wasn't it?
No, that was the first studio when we did Upside Down was a place called Alaska.
Okay,
run by the guy from the Vibrators in Waterloo. So we eventually went to Southern Studios to do Psycho Candy, which is Crassie's studio.
Yeah, I can never believe that record was made. It's a
Well,
massive
what
sound
happened
in such a small studio.
But what happened? We did try. We started it. We were starting to do our second single. Never Understand, with a guy called Stephen Street. By that time we were involved with Jeff Travis, his other, not Rough Trade, but he had a major label, Blanco and Eco, and he signed us to make a 12-inch, a single, then an album, and he put us in with Stephen Street, who had produced the Smiths, and that was another one of those complete and utter, fuck, has punk rock happened? Did I dream it? Because he was like totally disgusted that I only had 2 strings on my bass, and I was like, it took fucking so long to tune up. The guy was like, he couldn't believe it, and so we walked out after 2 hours and thought, and it was in a big studio as well, it was in a massive studio, it was Island Studios. I think everyone just went, this isn't the way that we're going to fucking make records, and I think it might be Jeff Travis, to his credit, that suggested Southern Studios that was literally in a garden shed, so it was like a very primitive and no pressure, and it was also with a guy called John Loder who would literally set up everything and just leave and go to his office. So.
Oh, did John Loder it?
He engineered it, but he just left us to our own devices.
He was an amazing engineer.
He's an amazing guy, yeah. Again, one of the only people that would have done that. He would just literally set up for the day and then just say, call me if you need me,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So just backtrack to the first single, there's always a bit of controversy how the sound appeared, the famous story that Joe Foster put the feedback on it. Did Joe produce it? Did Joe not know what he was doing? Did McGee stand by the doorway and say, this is what it's meant to sound like?
Well, I can just, obviously, in our other feedback was always there with us. I'd say what, the truth of the matter is when people said that I invented feedback, I wouldn't say. I'd say what Alan McGee did, and not Joe Foster at all, was encourage us to make it more extreme on the recording, but it was always there in our rehearsals when we actually ever fucking bothered to rehearse. So yeah, that was our sound, and I think maybe I'd say Alan encouraged us to make it more so. That's as far as I remember.
And how the songs get written at this point? Was it the brothers or?
Yeah, Jim and William. When I guess then being older than me, so Jim, when I first met him, he'd Upside Down and Never Understand. That's the kind of first 2 songs he wrote, and I was like fucking. In a way, I was the first fan really, and I was like, these are fucking amazing. And then when William joined, he quite a few more songs. So I'd say that even by the point we met McGee, I'd say over half of Cybercamp really had the songs already.
And what did you get any status right for yourself?
But when you get 2 amazing songwriters in the group, why would you fucking bother?
So your job was just plonk around the bass and cool. Yeah.
What a great job. It was.
And the whole look kind of evolved at this point as well, didn't it? Was that kind of McGee?
No, I think that was fully formed. I think maybe in 1983 a book had come out of photographs of not just of the Beatles in Hamburg, but all the kids that used to go to the shows. It's called Rock and Roll Times by Jürgen Wilmer. It's an amazing book if anyone knows it. Yeah, photographs of the kind of kids that went, and it was a kind of, what we liked about it is more of a kind of European, it wasn't like an American rock and roll thing, it was like leather trousers and a kind of, it looked more, in a way that kind of British rockers looked like, and I think we appealed to us that there was a British or a more European look than that. And that's kind of what we were going for. Of course, we got it all completely wrong. And, all of us had curly hair on it was to get kind of DAs and fucking, bowl haircuts. So that kind of, it's like, even like the way we were trying to sound, like maybe, the Shirelles, but it came out all wrong. That's the way that most people develop their own personality.
But it became a signature look, actually, the kind of curly hair.
Yeah, I guess none of all the pretty curly hair is weird. And, kind of unruly hair and leather trousers. But yeah, that was very much there, I think, before. Alan McGee just very much encouraged us to take everything further, and that was a great kind of influence in that respect.
Probably for a record label boss or whatever, or somebody who's in pop culture, it's probably the best thing they could do is create space for people to go to extreme.
It was, unbelievably inspiring and liberating. So yeah, I don't think any other label would have put up with it or encouraged it to quite the degree that he did.
So when you were doing the book, Zoe, what do you think McGee's role?
I think, it's almost like kind of the sort of fifth Beatle thing, from my point of view, I can see he's so much more than, because obviously they were all so incredibly young, Alan as well. I think that level of excitement you know, even as a manager and obviously a label boss, you know, it's tantamount to sort of being in the band. Or that's the feeling I got, you know, when he was talking about
I
it.
often wondered that.
Yeah. Is that what it felt like? It was almost like a gang or a team or a...
Yeah, it definitely became that, because I guess he was a manager under two managers, so it was kind of...
But he also dressed like a band as well.
Eventually, not when we first met him.
Yeah. There was about a year, I remember he started up in his leather trousers and curly hair as well.
That's right,
yeah.
He curly,
And then the whole creation started.
Yeah, no, it was so funny because I guess when we first met them, none of them really dressed like that, and one by one, even the people that would fucking laugh at us would just start dressing exactly the same.
So
you would say that was McGee's role then, just the...
Oh no, not solely that, but that was just a sort of impressionistic thing. But you know, I suppose, you know, as Douglas was saying, you know, the kind of encouragement to sort of push things further was, I suppose, as a band, you know, maybe not the most confident people in the world. You know, you're doing what you're doing instinctively and what, you know, what's coming naturally. But sometimes it does take an outside influence, you know, a dynamic person like McGee to say, this is fantastic, you could do more and you could, you know, push it. And, you know, so I think that's a really, really important, really interesting sort of part of his role and where he took them. And I think, you know, also there's so much kind of, I know there's so much attention given to sort of the kind of, these sort of agitprop statements that he would make and, you know, smashing up pop and all that kind of thing, which is just written the kind of McLaren obsession. But I think that's a really important part of it as well, because, you know, rock and roll is theatre, and that extends out to, you know, the people who aren't on the stage, and if that gets you to where you need to be, then so be it, then great.
Well, it also makes it feel really exciting. So when the so-called riots happened, and Alan was doing the statements, what about the thinking?
These so-called riots, they were real fucking riots.
I've seen real riots.
Yeah. No, well, we've all at certain times felt very in fucking danger. I mean, having balls thrown at you, I mean, maybe it's not a riot, but it's fucking...
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty hairy, isn't it? But Alan was making the statements.
Yeah, I mean, that was the kind of added element that Alan... I mean, he took those situations and, I guess, ran with them. But it eventually led to some tension between us, because well, at first we thought it was funny, and then as more and more people came just to fight, just something we kind of bore, you know. And then throw fucking bottles at us. We thought, this isn't so funny, and it did lead to eventually... Well, we eventually parted ways, didn't we? You know, so after Sample Candy, but...
Which I think actually probably did both sides a lot of good.
Yeah, and from that being but I think looking back on it, I think all of us have said, you know, maybe we should just stay with Creation. But I think we always knew, so the thing about when all these riots were happening, there was a kind of lot of just hype focused on that. The thing was, as we went on to make Psycho Candy around that time, we knew that we had great songs and a great record coming to kind of counter that, because if it had just been that, you know, fuck, you know, it could have been, you know, the end of us, you know, if it was just the kind of so-called hype about, you know, this, you know, violence and concerts, it would have been, you know, all over if we delivered a shit record. But I think we felt kind of good that we knew we had the music to back up.
It's always been a problem. A lot of bands, you know, you see the punk period as well. If you play the riot violence card too much, it completely overshadows the work.
Yeah. But I think we always knew, you know, because we had all these songs by that point.
But it's not like the antagonism, the violence disappeared, is it? It kind of became internalised in a way.
Yeah, and it became kind of predictable, and that was something that we always...
Yeah, but not in the audience so much, but, you know, in the band, you can still feel this kind of really sullen violence in the band.
Yeah, there was definitely, I think, because none of us were natural performers. I think when we got on stage, there was a strange kind of anger and a kind of desperation. So that definitely came from us to some degree, you know.
Where does that anger and desperation come from? Is it from growing up in a new town?
I think it is. I think because the kind of people that we were, we knew if we didn't get out of East Kilbride, we'd fucking, you know, become the killers or kill someone else.